Okay, welcome to the next Genesis deep dive we have going on here. This is chapter 3. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I've got an analysis going on demonstrating that there is something in the Bible that is not the religious carrier. You can deny it. You can be a theist or an atheist, and you probably don't see the template that the Bible is framed upon, that if we go after, is the actual path inward. We're going to enter the narrow gate. It's all metaphor. That's what we're doing with it here. Or you could also say the people that are believing it are carrying the ark. We're about to look inside of it. But that's metaphorical. All right, let's get started. Now, I've got to preserve my regular viewers and just move on here. They already know where the numbers come from and all of that. It's a big sequence. And if anybody has any questions about what I'm doing, feel free to ask. I can try to guide you to a video that's going to help. We're looking at puzzles here that are incredibly old, 5,000, 6,000-year-old verbal puzzles that we're trying to extract here. And the numbering pattern, all of that, it's only revealing itself through the numbering pattern by computer analysis. None of us knows it like they did. They had it memorized. They could do what they could do in their minds what I'm using the computer to do. This is why we don't have access to it. So if you watch what I'm doing and see, you'll go, oh, crap, there is something there. Okay, let's get right into it. Then the last video, I talked through that one, but there was one word there. It was this one where in chapter 2, Lord God was repeated 11 times. I didn't like that number. The first one was God was repeated 33 times in the first creation story. The name God was used instead of the name Lord God. Up here was Elohim. This one was, I don't know how to pronounce that, something Hebrew, Elohim. At any rate, different styles and different authors, and you can see they're using God up here. 30 is a good number, 3 is a good number. You can take those piles and combine them. A 20 and a 1 is bad just because it's 1 over a 20. 13 is bad because it's 1 over a 12. I don't know if that's, I don't know if these are all analogs or not, but there's a numbering pattern that is very consistent. We're looking at things like 3, heaven, 7. 7-3 grid right there. And you know what? I forget that I need to explain myself better. If you go read through the chapter, 7 will be said 3 times. 3 will be said 7 times. They'll appear on verses 7 and 3. There's these continual link-ups going on that if you just read it and don't know it, you'll just read there's 7s and 3s in there. You don't realize that they're actually repeating them an exact amount of times to cross-reference each other. There's a reason for that. It's part of their story code. You memorize the story, the code's there. Can you figure it out? It's in repeats and numbers. It's like this. I've got the second creation story, or chapter 2 rather, right here, isolated by itself. So if I come up here and I search this document for how many times just this chapter, I'm going to put 7th right there. I'll just put it down to 7 period. And it appears exactly 3 times. And you can see right here that the third one appears on verse 3. This is where the 7-3 grid is beginning right here. It's a code, but it's hard to see it. If you just keep looking at the repeats, you'll go, something is there. But we just don't know it. We don't know it. If we looked at up here we've got the 7, heaven, 3 face. It's a little different. There's a couple of variations going on between them, but this 3-7 tie point right here is hypercritical, and this existed in Babylonian material. And I say that, but I want to make sure that I show you that I have done research on this. The Enuma Elish, I've gone through the entire Enuma Elish that I've got on the computer and just started going through the nouns and verbs, and what you see here is 3 times 3 is repeated, and 3 times 7 is repeated right there in the document. Divine counsel, divine force, blessing. There's things that are lining up here in the analogs and the repeat count that make you go, wow, that's a different version. Same numbering system, different carrier shell. But the numbering system is the same. 3 said 5 times. 5 is one of the numbers we collected. 5 is said 3 times in the Sodom analog farm. Lamu and Lahamu equate to Adam and Eve. Early start, beginning. So instead of Adam Eve 3-7 grid, Adam Eve 5 collected number. 7's a little different, but we've got net. Net is what you capture the memories in. Mantles of brilliance, feet, source. Yeah, it's a little different. The next step 8 would be like first sin. The next step after 7, first sin. Lady Huber there, she's the one that, and poison, blood, they're the devil. They're the ones that bring the bad force in the same way. So you can see that they're following an identical background pattern. Whoever knows the template, they're not enemies. However, this 11 for the Lord God down here then was not okay. It was just not okay in the chapter 2 word count. And what we've been talking about, or what I've been analyzing here, is the chapter and verse numbering pattern that was put in the Bible by Stephan Langton, Archbishop Stephan Langton, and that it's patterned in there in a way that's very helpful to us. He knew it by memory, probably. He's doing this pre-computer. He's trying to point numbers to things that are going on. He's sectioning it out there. I never did see his work, though. I never spotted that. I'm just playing with the computer and spotting repeating patterns in there, and finally realized, gosh, his numbers are connecting up the same way. So he was pointing the way in, but none of us were getting it. Only the computer is what revealed it to me. Here, I love this one here. The Marduk is the called hero in the Enuma Elish. He's the one that comes in and he's the one that makes it so that all the destruction is done and they're on the other side. His name repeated 41 times, and in Genesis, Noah is that same person. He's the one who is going on the other side of the destruction. He's the one that's going to be on the other side of the change of the world there. And his name is repeated exactly 41 times. I don't think that's just there's too much here. All right, all that said and done, we come back to our list here, and there's no 11s on it. Now, there might be an 11 that comes in. 10 could step up to an 11. I don't find too many negative ones, and I also know that I only have identified 2 steps. There's going to be more steps. And also it's important to understand these because as you go along, chapter 7 is what? This is a pure state here early on. Chapter 7 is where the flood happens. Hey, in the beginning, 3:7, that is where Adam and Eve begin. 3:7, that's where the 3:7 grid begins. Who's next? Abram and Sarai, their first chosen, their life begins. Where? On chapter 12. We're going to be able to apply this as a macro numbering system to patterns in the story. The story is going through stages, and the stages are going to reflect that whatever number they are. So there's a purpose for that numbering system that's in there. If we get to a chapter 8 or a chapter 13 or a chapter 21, you should see something bad going on there, or a destruction, something that needs to be wiped out. Circumcision, day 8. Yeah, something needs to be changed from the physical. So then we go back to Genesis word counts by chapter. What do we see there? 21. Earth is repeated 21 times. Sodom is repeated 21 times in all of Genesis. So this is how it's cluing us in to understand what there is. You would think, if you didn't interpret it, you would think, oh, yes, the earth is created. That's good. Life is here and all that. This is a personal mental thing. The earth that is being created is your world experience, your life experience. We're born, we are detached. We live from a higher awareness, from you could call it a God state. That's an analogous term. But as we live through life, we begin living through our memories and we lose contact with that. That's why another pattern you're going to see here is that very soon God disappears and returns when it's time for a destruction or cyclical pain to begin. You'll see it with Abram and Sarai too. He puts them in a land of famine, then disappears. Has to send plagues to come back and clean things up. You'll see patterns like that are conceptual. Those are the ones that are hard to see for people. Where was God during this time? Gets things going and then disappears. That represents us living a life. We were living as children from our higher awareness. Then we begin to live through life experiences, and that we lose touch with it. We want to get back to it. That's the return of, well, that's how the story's going to work. Okay, so the earth that's why the earth is bad. The earth is your physical experience. You want to live from heaven, not from earth. Metaphorically, states of mind. Okay, you can see that the stories are written that way. Somebody writes a big story. They are keeping track of exactly how many times they are using names of places and cities, sometimes hundreds of times. This is huge, really, really huge. We don't even think so. All right. Where are we? Let's get back to that 11 then. Why was that? All right, I move on to 3, see what happens. Okay, as with the other videos and the other chapters, I'm copying and pasting it into a document on its own, chapter by chapter. I'm using the King James Version of the Bible, and here I've got chapter 3 just in isolation, because I've learned that there is a specific word count within each chapter that I need to understand. So that's the only way I can do it, because I don't have it memorized. So this is a supplement to being way behind the ball compared to them. All right. I see Lord God is used here like it was in chapter 2. Chapter 1, it did not use Lord God. It only used God. So I'm going to just jump on that right off the bat. And it comes up 9 times. And instantly I remember I had my 11, and then there's 9, and then there's 20. If it wasn't broken into a chapter right there, Lord God would appear 20 times. What does that tell me? What do I need to understand about this? 20 is a good number, and I think Lord God is put in there. The chapters and verses were added later. However, this is a natural break in the story. Now, the serpent was more subtle. Remember, the last step was man and his wife were naked and unashamed in the garden. And naked, unashamed. There they were. Then the next step, this is the next step. So there's a logical chapter break here. We are moving on to the next thing. Chapter 2 at the end was like locked and loaded for the game. That's a weird thing to say. As you go through the chapters, it's setting things up like you're born. Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a mental hierarchy that you're going to function through cause and effect. That, the seeds the trees that grow that produce seeds that produce more of itself. There's this nesting in there. All of that plays out in here, and they're all analogous terms. Whatever grows from you produces more of itself again, no matter what it is. We become cyclical creatures of habit. We live through our memories. We are born, and how old are you before you can start remembering things and start making your own decisions? You have to develop enough for that to even happen. So, all right, that's happening, and right there, naked, unashamed, Garden of Eden, that's where the kids are before life experience happens. We're happy little children. And then right at step 3, first sin represents the idea that you are now having life experiences and going, oh, it's not all happy, is it? There's people out here getting hurt. I'm getting hurt. I hate, I don't like, I want, I have. All of that begins to happen. You go from a childhood state of not aware of that into a normal human state of now it's time to grow and emerge. And wherever you are from, you become products of that. That's where we are right here. The transition between those two. No life experience, boom, now we're having life experience. That's what's happening here. It's a natural chapter break. However, it's obvious chapter 2 minus the 3 verses that were left, that were overlapped in. Then when it starts at verse 4 all the way down to the end here, these were all one story at one point. The second creation story and first sin. And Lord God being said 20 times in there was a good thing. The chapter break still has to be there, though, but it's an oddball place. But I also realized that if he had to make the break there, he's got to make the break there. And if the numbering is off, there's nothing he can do about it unless he was to rewrite something from antiquity, and that's not going to fly. So he was kind of stuck doing that. It would be better off if there was 10 in one and 10 in the other, wouldn't there, instead of 11 and 9. But unfortunately, when whoever wrote the story probably didn't consider that. It's just one piece. As he's putting in the chapter breaks, he has to separate them that way, and suddenly there was a division between them that was not meant to be there. So I think that resolves for me, that satisfactorily resolves why that 11 was there, because there's 9 here, and put them together, and that's 20, and they're all grouped together in this one section. The chapter break makes it look funny, but I think that we're not going to find perfection, but it's going to be purposeful nevertheless. I think that doesn't mean we're off track. It just means that they're doing the best they can. All right, so what I have here then is the Genesis word counts by chapter. What I put down here, since I saw that right off the bat, was 9 counts, Lord God, combined with the 11 in chapter 2 equals 20. And for the chapter 2 list up here, I put that into 11, Lord God, and I spelled that how it is spelled. It's not in the Bible that way. When we read it in English, it says Lord God. And combined with the 9 in chapter 3 equals 20. So I put that in there. I just want to be very transparent. It's hypercritical that everything I do be accurate. If I find error, if I find this is not working, if it's not gridded up, then I'm not going to do it. All right, I combine them all together. What I've done is I've taken the entire section of 2, 3, and 4, which look like the same author, same style, same use of Lord God verbiage continuously. And I just linked all of them together here to search. All right, Eden, garden. All right, talk about this one for a minute because it kind of puzzles me. But I think I can figure it out. Garden, we have to make sure we're careful with the analogs. You would think garden is a good thing, and it's Garden of Eden. Eden is a good thing. If you look for Eden, Eden is said 6 times. You know it's there. Garden is what then? How come you would think they're the same thing? But if garden is said the amount of times that make it bad, then you have to say, well, what was your garden that you grew up in? The garden could be anything. My garden was one where my brother committed suicide because he thought that if he died, he would just appear in heaven and he could leave the abuse. My garden was, you're stupid, you're damn dumb, you're never going to amount to anything. Get over here, I'm going to whip you. I mean, I've had to do a lot of work on things, but a garden is not always a good thing. Garden means where you come from. What garden did you grow up in? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking here. And I said in the other video that the earlier on stuff wasn't quite as concise as, when you get down to 12 and on, it's like, whoo, that stuff really tightens up. This was much older, and it was probably in their culture, and it was already there. If you stop the story at Genesis, it was very much like the Atrahasis. If you think about it as a life thing, if I have a bad life, you don't normally just have one flood and you're okay. You have to keep going over and over again, which is what the rest of the material does, go over and over again. That flood to wipe out all the bad at one time, that doesn't really happen anyway. That's how it was happening in the Enuma Elish, and that's how it happened in Genesis before that second advancement. The other numbers came on. Everything got much tighter. So I do think up at this section right here, there's something different going on. It was a different kind of a blend. I don't think it was quite dialed in as tight. I see some head-scratching things. A couple of them are things like this. I'm not going to detail a bunch of it. You should be advanced enough by now to figure some of this stuff out. Okay, so the first creation story is the one that develops the 3-7 grid. If you took that out, the second creation story does not do a 3-7 grid at all. Even though it's following a numbering pattern, it doesn't develop it. It doesn't tell you how it starts or anything like that. You're naked, unashamed in the garden is how that one starts, without the numbering pattern there. You get down to Noah, you're going to find that there's 2 callings. One time he is told to just bring 2 of everything. The other time he's told to bring 7 pairs of all clean of everything. So there's 2 creation stories. There's 2 callings of Noah. They're stitching the stories right there. So we have to know there's a blend of things that's happening up here that are probably not the smoothest on the template, the numbering system and things like that. The actual atom numbering system, the very big one where the 900s are said 7 times and things like that, and it's gathering up those numbers, the 50s, the 12s, 7s, all that. And then the Sodom analog farm, the 50s, 40 said 3 times, 5, 3, all that numbering going on. Righteous said 7 times. The whole blend of numbers talking to each other right there. If we read them and don't know it, we don't know to gather them up. This is a collection here. Bring it up here to this pile. But there's a Shem lineage in, I think it's in chapter 11 after Babel or something like that, that sounds different. That was the original one that goes to this up here and would have, I think, more closely linked back with the Babylonian stuff. It more closely, that's what I'm thinking at this point. Something else I want to talk about that kind of shows the blending, how things are happening and how one story morphed into a next. And it's the way they're utilizing terms. Let's go look at something that's naked and nakedness. Those 2 terms right there that are both used in Genesis. Actually, let me just go there and show you. Okay, I'm going to come over here and navigate. Naked. It looks like it's said 8 times. If you look through here, you'll see naked, naked, naked was said 3 times. And then there's nakedness, 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 and nakedness that is said 5 times. If you take naked by itself, it's not okay. But if you take naked 3 times, that's okay. And if you take nakedness 5 times, that's okay. They kept it somehow together, but the naked up here, that's Adam and Eve naked in the Garden of Eden, naked unashamed. This nakedness is the nakedness of Noah after the flood. He was naked after the flood, which was a good thing. They couldn't have it be 8. They couldn't say he was naked. They had to use nakedness. That made sure that naked, and this is a translation to English, so I realize there's something that has to be done in Hebrew that makes it this way. What I want to clearly suggest here is that naked or nakedness, either one of the two, being said a specific amount of times on this template means that's what it is. You could have had nakedness after the flood said only 3 times. You could have written the story so much that it said nakedness 12 times or 20 times. As long as it comes from this pool, that means it's a good thing. They're going to be using this pool of numbers for dates, years, amount of cattle and goats and camels, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, those numbers are going to always be coming from here, this pool. Time, what time? So-and-so is 40 when they get married, it's going to continue to appear from this number pool. So I just want to show you that there's some clever verbiage stuff going on sometimes where they're trying to show I'm not covered with anything, but we have to make sure that it reflects a good thing, that naked and nakedness are both good, not bad. But to me, it's these kind of things you look at and go, it's a blend. It's not one author. It's a blend. You can just see it in the way the stories are written. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm doing is something a little bit different. You see, I just have to make this up as I go along because you're finding stuff that goes, oh, maybe I better chunk this together. So right here, I've got chapter 2, 3, and 4 that I want to search as a single piece. Now I'm seeing something that I need to do something better in this chunk right here. So I come over here, and the first thing I want to do is go, 7. This is why I was showing you that last thing with the naked and nakedness. 7 looks like it said 7 times. Ooh, hey, that sounds exciting. But if you look, you go, no, 7th, sevenfold, 70. No, they're not all 7, so figure it out what you have going on. 7th, it's said exactly 3 times. That's the 7-3 grid. Sevenfold, it's said exactly 3 times also. And sevenfold means 7 times, but it's instead of just saying 7, they're saying sevenfold. And then 70, just the one time. I'm going to gather up that 70 because it's surrounded by 7s. But here's another way I can go to confirm it. If you and I had Genesis memorized, if, yeah, if a frog had wings, right? Okay, how many times was 7 said in the entire... Hang on, let me get switched over to... I got too many screens up. There we go. All right, now I am in the entire King James version of Genesis, the entire book, 70. We know that 70 was not only gathered there, but being repeated 5 times, which is also one of the other analogous numbers, that confirms that it will continue to cross-reference itself in this manner. 900. 900 is said exactly 7 times. 800. 7 times. Do you see what they're doing? They're cross-referencing numbers and repeating them a certain amount of times that we will never access without having the depth of memory that is required to see this. And I'm convinced at this point that if you don't sit down with the computer and do this and work it out in your mind, it's just a novelty to observe somebody do. It's really not something it's not going to be understood. You know what? I'm analyzing this garden further. There's something here it almost looks like there's a transition, like it starts out good and then it goes bad. Let me zero in here and take a look at that. If I put garden up here in the navigation bar again, yes, we got 13 in this section, which is like, well, that's not good. But before I dropped down into here, when I checked garden up here, it appeared 5 times in chapter 2 by itself. And it's noted it's a good thing then. That's a good thing, the garden. At this point, it is good. Garden, 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 it's all good. When we drop into chapter 3, there we go. As we drop into chapter 3, listen to the tone. You shall not eat of every tree of the garden. He's asking him. It was like it's punishment time now. You were told to eat of the garden. Okay, so in one chapter it was good. Down here it went bad. It went from, it was 8 times then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is repeated 8 times in chapter 3. So it's good in chapter 2, but it's bad in chapter 3. It went from a good place to a bad place. The garden just means life, and it went from good to bad because of us. Yeah, it's just what happens to the garden. It's the way we manage it. We don't know that. We don't know that. That's just life. All right, I want to make a point there that very, very clearly what we just saw was me doing 2 different things. In one case, I'm trying to say, well, because one was 11 and one was 9 is probably in one story. And then in the next one, I'm saying, okay, this is what it should look like. What I'm going to tell you is, that actually the 9 and 11 one is unusual. What we just saw right here, this is the reason I'm looking at each chapter specifically. This is what I'm expecting to see. This is why I came in to look at this, because I was seeing this very tight as I was isolating out chapter 12. I realized I have to do the whole thing. But as I go through it, again, up in the front here, I'm finding anomalies. I'm recording as I'm going through it. I'm not going to go through this, figure it out, and then come back and make a video. So you're watching me do it on the fly. So here we are. Okay. What I want to do is stop for a minute, and we need to plain language everything that just happened right here and modernize the verbiage. If this is me and it's about me, what the hell? How does it work? And I'm going to leave some things out of it. There are some things in the Genesis version with respect to creating the birds of the air, the animals, all that kind of stuff. If all of these play out in the psyche, these are going to become component parts of who and what we are in some way. And then later on in life, as things emerge from us, or as we have, if you're taking on slaves and animals someplace from Pharaoh, that represents you're taking on experiences in life that weren't there to begin with. So there's something deeper at a deeper layer in here that we have to pay attention to. And I'm not going to try to detail that up here because I know it's working that way. And they're telling us up here, this is kind of like the instructions. When you get down into the rest of it, it's going to work this way. Here's the earth is your experience. The waters is what emerges from within you. The heavens are the higher awareness, the higher realm. All of that are built up into here. The birds of the air are the thoughts that you have. So there's some tricky stuff going in. Remembering again, this is probably, I don't know, they say this is probably older than that. I mean, Genesis itself is kind of a kludge when you get to this level of looking at it. And this stuff right here looks like it's kind of messy. Like it was just a number of different stories that they tried to combine into one. And it was like, something's working here for a religion. Let's put all this together. Let's combine it because they're all in our culture, fit them together and make it flow. And that's what it looks like to me. All right, let's switch over to this actual biblical template. Creation stories globally. Nest the human birth and early stages of life, as well as how life is going to function and how we can turn inward to heal mentally. Self-heal from our inner pain. How we can mentally self-heal from our inner pain, yeah. All right, so I've gone ahead and started listing the steps here to the best that I can. Do you see right down here, number 3, I've got cause and effect? If you were to go read in Genesis right now, number 3, this is the one where the trees produce the seed that produce more seed, or more trees that produce more, within itself. That's the cause and effect teaching. So I've got that purposefully here at 3. I believe that's what is part of the 7-3 grid. That down here, 7, we're young children, self-aware, but with life experience still ahead of us. So we're being told that everything's that things move in cycles. There's going to be cause and effect. You start out as a young child. This is kind of setting you up for how it's going to work, how life is going to work. If we start up at step number 1, the creation itself, we emerge from a higher energy source than the physical one we are born into. It is the source we call God and higher self or higher awareness. We are mentally undeveloped at birth. And though we live through that higher awareness, our consciousness has not developed to be self-aware for a few years yet. We're going to eventually live through our memories. We're going to be consciously aware of living through our memories, as well as the fixed qualities we are born with. We're not, when you're first born, you're not living through any memories, are you? We don't even have any memories of that stuff. So we're born, we're alive, but we're not living through memories, are we? We have to start developing memories. We have to develop enough to get to a certain point, and that's what's happening right here. But in the beginning, It doesn't say you just emerge as some hunk of meat here. It's saying that you are emerging here as a physical creature from some higher place that is up here, and that you are going to go off and live physical life experience, and you're going to lose contact with your source. And that if you're lucky, and if you're the right person, you can find your way back to not live through those experiences, but to live through this higher source. We are coming from and returning to that higher source regardless. But somewhere in between is something called life. I don't know what happens to I think my memories is what I'm living through. So when my brain's gone, my memories are going to be gone. But that higher awareness, whatever that is always there. That's where we emerge from. So I want to be clear up front about that. There's something in here. I don't know what that is. I'm just saying that that's what this is teaching, that in the beginning there's something up here, and that physically we're emerging from that energy source. And you're not just coming from an egg and a sperm. That egg and sperm comes from a bigger picture. Comes from another egg and sperm, and life itself that comes from something that was here before life was here. Okay, so we've been born, but when God creates things and then lets man name them, but God establishes there's some things that we're born with that are in our DNA, our brain types. There's different qualities that we have. We are not identical. We are not going to be the same. There might be an equality necessary, but there sure the hell is not the same personality or thinking skills or things like that among people. All right, so we've got all that going on up here. Everything moves in cycles, the quality of which is as variable as human perception. Yeah, whatever you have going on in life, whether it's good or bad, it's going to keep cycling for you. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Or the Tao Te Ching, it says, yet mystery and manifestation come from the same source. Whatever is good and whatever is bad comes from the same place. Basically, we cycle around that we hang on to, and this is a mental part. We interpret that mentally. Let me stop and explain this part right here. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, because this is incredibly important. This is not happening from an entity, a deity that is making capricious decisions or logical decisions based on the manner of whether you believe, trust, have faith, or today's your lucky day or not. No, what's happening is that the energy for whatever we have going on, something happens. I don't like it. But you know what? Throughout life, every time I think about it, there's energy for it still there. The energy is still there. I hate this. Where's that energy coming from? I'm not storing that energy. That energy for my life is coming from somewhere else. It's filtering through my life and my perceptions. I'm seeing life through the mote in my eye. We cling with memory and the consciously attached emotional state of the memory. This is typically something we are not aware of happening. We don't know we're doing that. We just don't like stuff. I remember that, and it sucks. And the more I think about it, the madder I get. Yeah, they get worse even as time goes on. And we're living through those, feeding them, nurturing them by looking at them and not knowing that. And, thinking about it and going, God, I hate it more. Each time we do that, we're feeding it more. We're feeding it more of what we don't like about it, and we don't know that we're creating it there. Cause and effect are the reason for all existence. It's a universal law. Entropy ensures this. Nothing happens in a vacuum. If we're here, it's because of something else happened before, which is a result of something that happened before, which is a result of something that happened before, and we're in that process too. There is no free will, therefore, in the mind unless one turns inward to influence internal changes that will not rectify themselves. Basically, we live through our memories. These are at the level of the memory and perception. Our life's self-awareness comes through these memories and the manner in which we store them with emotional charge. They become the mote in one's eye. They affect and, in fact, are the overall quality of our life. That bundle of memories is what we're living through, and the quality of those memories is going to be the quality of our life. And if you can spike up or down at some point in time, you see overall, you look at it and go, God, you know what? Even though I can force something good here and there to happen, it returns back to something different. All right, so those are teachings that are in the front of this material, letting us know what life is, where we come from and what life is going to be like and how this material is going to work if you can figure it out. And this is thousands of years ago. It's really incumbent upon us to try to put ourselves in their world and what are they doing as they're trying to solve these as puzzles. If you're reading it at face value or denying it, yeah, okay. You're part of the masses. Okay, so step 7, at this point right here in the template, we are young children, self-aware, but with life experiences still ahead of us. We live in a state of mental bliss, presumably. That's how the template starts out. Many people today start from abuse and hurt and didn't have this childhood experience. But at this stage of life, we have basic knowledge and skills. We can ask for what we want. We know colors, flavors, counting, and similar emotionally benign things from within our immediate surroundings and awareness within it. We can function on our own within a small environment now. We don't have to have somebody come and we've got to be cared for. We don't know not to walk in traffic, but we know in our comfortable, our little environment here, everything, we know how to function in there. Imagine a child playing happily without a single care in the world. This is that stage. All right, I don't think everybody can put themselves into this today. I think what we have to do is think about, long ago. In my childhood, I don't really remember, I can remember some happy things, but I can remember, when we got in trouble a lot. What was real severe was that the pain was something you remembered of most of all when you got spanked or whipped or something like that. I know that there are kids today we're overpopulating. There are people that are still going through the motions of having kids because that's what we're designed to do, but the kids have got no chance whatsoever. Yet they're still being, keep having kids. There's going to be kids today born looking at this going, I don't know what you're talking about. That happy childhood state, that never happened. 6,000 years ago was different. The civilization is booming. Everybody's a close-knit community. Everybody sees and knows everybody. They're working together. They care for each other. There's no medicine, doctors, and things like that are very limited. 6,000 years ago. Life is different. We want children. They're cared for. Okay, the material comes from there. Put yourself in that place. Let's go. All right there is right before what? Step 8, first sin. 8. Here we have started to judge the experiences we have that are away from our nurtured beginnings, okay? So we've left our mother and father behind, clung to our inner self, our wife, and have moved on now. This is that stage. We are consuming from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which means we are now spiritually eating from the tree of what is real in life. We're seeing what's there. We name, judge, or give words to our experiences, and we remember them with emotion. These are going to become the experiences that we live and judge life through. We lose our mental state of bliss, Eden, that we lived through as unaware children. Okay, plain language, that's where we are at step 7. So that first sin starts, boom, we just stepped right here into that stage. All right, everybody on board with that? Let's move on. Okay, so for this interpretation, I'm simply going to go through the analogs that I understand without going through the number count. So what I've done is I've completely cut it down here to just chapter 3, as you can see. Well, I'm going to need to pull that up farther, don't I? Down to verse 24, driving him out of the garden. Okay, so we started out at the end of chapter 2, happy, naked in the garden, yeah, yeehaw. Now we go off and experience life, and we're going to lose that in the chapter here. So the serpent represents life experiences, and Eve represents the temptation, what gets tempted. What really happens? Stop and think about that for a second. This is written in such a way that it makes us sound like, oh, wait a minute, how do I get out of here? There we go. Okay, it makes it sound like the inner self went off and sinned, and you're sitting there as a consciousness going, what the hell did you do that to me for? That's how the story's written, but it doesn't work that way, does it? Adam is the consciousness. Eve is the inner self. The inner self is the one that gets corrupted. They're writing the story to make it sound like the religion has to happen. Ladies, you're subservient. You bitches, look what you did. You screwed us all up. Okay, so that's how the story's written, and that sucks. It really sucks. But we know it's a mental hierarchy. What is happening is that the experience of life is loaded in. The consciousness is the one going off and going, man, I went drinking last night. The next day I woke up with somebody and now I got something. What the hell? Yeah, you know what? Here we are. The consciousness is doing it, and what happens? The pain, the shame, all of that stuff goes into the woman, and the woman is the one that hurts. That's the inner self that hurts. That's what's really happening here. Okay, unwrap this better than the way it's written. And you know what? I said that wrong on editing. I caught that. The inner being does not hurt. The inner being stores the nature of what makes the physical experience hurt. Okay, we always feel it at the level of conscious. You don't feel it at someplace else. You wouldn't feel it. You feel it when it's in your conscious. That's what hurts. The memory brought into the conscious makes the conscious re-experience something that is simply a memory, which then creates all the chemicals necessary for us to go ahead and feel viscerally through our central nervous system something that is a memory. The inner self is not going off and having experiences and coming back and screwing us. This is us having experiences in life going, I don't like that, I do, that's shameful, that's aggressive, that's whatever it is that we assign it. And that is what is happening here. We are, what would Jesus say? Judge not, lest you be judged, for the judgment with which you judge will continue on throughout. Right here. Boom. This is naming is the beginning of all particular things. This is where the Word is made flesh. This is where classifying something, naming it, creates what it is. But it's happening combined. The story is written to work in a patriarchal society where most people are not going to understand the deeper layer, but they're sure going to understand the carrier shell. All right, let's go back and look at this in greater detail now and just talk it through. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he asked the woman, Did God tell you you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to him, to life experience, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. Yeah, we may eat of all the trees that are here in the garden where the God put us. But of all the fruit of the trees in the midst of the garden is the ones we're not supposed to eat or touch it, or else we'll die. And so there's a fruit tree which is in the middle of the garden. That's it, a fruit tree. People ask apple trees. This is life experience. There's a life experience that you're not supposed to eat. That's the tree. That's the flavor of the tree. It is knowing that life is hard. It's not really gentle and easy. And the serpent said to the woman, You will not die, for God knows that in the days to eat it, then your eyes will be open, and you shall be like gods, knowing good from evil. What is it, knowing good from evil? Yeah, that's knowing good and no longer are we happy kids. Now we feel good and we feel bad. You know them both now. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and it was pleasant to the eyes, we're going to go have life experiences. We desire, we want to go learn, we want to try, we want to experiment. So we consume of that tree. And also gave it the husband. Yeah, no kidding, right there's the spot right there. This is actually the husband and the woman together having life experience. And the eyes of them were both open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So right there they've covered themselves, because something that now that they've consumed something, now that they've had a life experience, they don't want to be honest about it anymore. There's something to hide. So we want to cover ourselves. They covered themselves, and that represents now I've got things to hide. I can't tell you this. Or I've got, maybe they're not things to hide, maybe they're just anger. I hate those, I hate them. I've got judgments, I'm prejudiced. There's something else that is negative, derogatory. And they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden. The voice of the Lord is the higher awareness. This is us having inner conflict. Oh shit. What did I do? And the Lord God called to Adam and said, Where art thou? No, that's not actually right. There's a part of us, let me talk about the Lord God for a minute. We need to know how to interact with the Lord God. The Lord God is something, God, the higher awareness, the God itself, this place that we emerge from. This is why you think it might be somehow perhaps, I don't know, the conscious, I don't know what's going on. Let me just describe it. You're tossing and turning at night, 3 or 4 in the morning. You got that mental conflict going on that you can't get out of. It's got you wrapped up. But every once in a while, a third voice steps in that's calm and detached and tells you. You didn't go solicit. You didn't go look for that voice. It just comes in on its own. That's it right there. Why does it come in on its own? And it tells you, hey, just relax. There's nothing you can do. It knows you're living through your memories, and you're twisted up in your memories. And it's like coming in and trying to tell you. It's like, what is that? Right there. Okay, so that's this dialogue going on with the God, the higher awareness. This is what we're living through in the beginning, but as the life experiences come about, this connection with the higher awareness disappears. We're going to see that God leaves the story. That's because we lose connection. We go off and live life experience unaware of that. And the called person is the one that goes, son of a bitch, I'm living through my memories. I don't want to do that. I want to rise above them. I want to live from the higher awareness. I want to resolve what it takes down here so that I'm not hanging on to it anymore. Imagine you start out in life as a consciousness and you got a clean glass of water, but through life you put things in it. At first, maybe a little sugar. That's fine. A little lemon. That's fine. A little chocolate. Well, doesn't go good with the lemon. It's drinkable. How about a little bit of dirt? Oh, man, I don't know. How about some salt? Oh, you want to leave it granular, sand or something. Pretty soon, you're going through life, and these all represent that you're filling up your glass of water with something. You still need to consume from this. As life goes on, it gets full of other things. Pretty soon, you've got out in the yard and you've picked up some dog poop and put it in there. You've, sprinkled some, I don't know, just toxic things here or there, garbage and whatnot. And you're trying to let that settle to the bottom so you can drink off the top. But there's still stuff in there. And imagine that that's the soul of life. But the only way to get the pure water is to stop. That's what happens when the world is full and it needs to be flooded. Represents when this is so polluted you can hardly drink it anymore. You live through waste. And what happens when the calling starts is it's not going to clear it out one time like a flood. It's going to go in repeatedly, like you're going to go in and say, I'm going to pull out the poop this time. Okay, I got that. The sand? Yeah, that happened over there. Let's go resolve that. I'm going to pull that out. Oh, what about that chocolate over there that wasn't really the right thing? I mean, it was okay, but it really is not a good mix. I got to let that go. You go in and you resolve that. That's what the pathway really is and why it repeats over and over again. That's also why reincarnation is in Hinduism. All right, so it's healing cycle over and over again, a rebirth. Each time it's a rebirth. This one it's held in, it's not held as a reincarnation. It's held in a different way. If you just roll along with the story, you'll see that it's healing process after healing process once you get underway. Okay, so we get back here, and what we see where we are then is that, we're just having life experiences. And we're talking to God, where are you? Well, I hid myself because And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. This is us hiding from the higher awareness. Among the trees in the garden. The garden is in the mind. This is where we all meet up. And you have to treat the words like analogs. Hide does not mean we are literally hiding. We don't know. It's like we are detached from this higher awareness. The memories are going to bring us that way. So be careful of the words. It's not like you're trying to avoid this thing. We're not. We're completely unaware of it. Yeah, what's really happening here is what this is doing is developing the idea that we are going from a naked state to a covered state because of you consuming something I told you not to. I told you not to have life experiences, but you did anyway. And of course, he blames the woman. There's a reason for that. That's going to be an important part of when we have pain in childbirth. This is going to be why it's important for the woman to be the guilty party here. And I did eat. And the Lord God said to the woman, "What's this done?" And the woman said, "The serpent tricked me and I did eat." And so what we have here, the Lord God, higher awareness, serpent, life experience. Life experience, you're cursed above all cattle, above every beast of the field. Upon the belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. So the serpent just represents something that can't rise off the ground. It's on its belly. It doesn't have feet, legs, wings. It just crawls on terra firma. So that means that in a spiritual realm, that would mean that we're always living from life experience, not detached from it. The serpent represents the life experience that is never detached. I'm going to put hate between you and the woman and between your seed and her seed, and it'll bruise your head and it'll bruise his heel. And it'll bruise his heel. Between her seed, yeah. You're gonna have cyclical pain as a result of what's happening. It'll get passed along. Unto the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desires shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you." That is so important right there. There is our cyclical pain. And look at it, it's in verse 16. Pain in childbirth means that every time this memory that you have acts out again, every time you get triggered, it's going to be painful. And it says multiply. It's going to get worse. It's going to grow as time goes by. And your desire is going to be to your husband. That's the inner self wanting to. The inner self is dependent upon the consciousness to make the decisions. The inner self is just the storage facility that acts out. And he shall rule over you. Yeah, but he doesn't. He's loading her and doesn't know that he's ruling. And to Adam, he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, because you have responded to what you have pain, and eaten of the tree and have life experiences, and I told you not to, then you're going to have a screwed up life, cursed is the ground, and for sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Yeah, you're going to live attached like the serpent here. At this point, you're going to live attached to life experience, the physical experience, what you're seeing, what you're observing, what you're judging. Watch people and go, I'm going to just respond to all of that, not realizing that you're watching a movie unfold and that they're all being motivated by something deeper. And if you're just watching the movie and responding to it, then you're just like them. You're not observing it. You're living it. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to you. What's out of your garden? What are thorns and thistles? Damn it! I put another hole in the drywall. Busted another window. Screamed and yelled. Something. Yelled at the kids. I'm just throwing out examples. And when I do that, I always tend to throw out the obvious, someone's acting out. But it could be more subtle than that. This has to be understood very personally. When you're sitting by yourself someplace in quiet where you have the opportunity for things to just be quiet and peaceful in your mind, does it get that way, or do you bring turmoil with you? All of that stuff is a non-peaceful state. It doesn't have to end up being something that's violent towards others. It could just be something that is very self-deprecating. In the sweat of the face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, and for dust you are, and unto dust you shall return. Yeah, so you can see that fits with the second creation story, huh? That's where he was created from the dust. And we knew that anyway by looking at it. And this means that you're going to... Eating of the bread of life means that as you do things and live life, you're going to consume from them. If you do something good, you're going to eat from that experience. Bad stuff is going to happen. You shall return to the ground, for out of it you shall return. We'll leave that one alone. And Adam called his wife's name because she was the mother of all living. I put a note in here compared to Tiamat in the Enuma Elish, Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to all. To Adam also and to his wife, he made them coats of skin and clothed them. And look at what that is on verse 21. You got covered up on verse 21. That's part of the numbering system that's in our face. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become one of us to know good and evil. So something out there is saying, I don't know what, I'll trade life and live forever. Yeah, I think this is saying now that you know the difference between, now that everything doesn't feel good all the time, and you're going to live and you're going to be unconscious of that, and you're going to need to go off and live your life with your mind closed to this higher awareness. At this point, I can only say that that's something that you have to be able to process experientially. You have to be able to look at this and go, okay, I see that higher awareness, and I see living through the life experiences, and I see that I can make that transition. You have to be able to do that. Otherwise, what I'm talking about here, it's nonsensical as far as being interactive. It's sensical as far as being something in the supernatural realm for superstitions, but at the natural template level. All right, so what that means is that this is 6,000-year-old stuff, and I don't know exactly how it reads to them, but what I can look at this and say that I know what it's telling me is that I am going to begin to have good and bad experiences, and that I am going to leave my past behind, and that happy child, blissful place I was in the Garden of Eden, I am going to be gone from. And I'm not really driven there from God. That's just the natural course of things. You don't come back. And it's guarded. There's a flaming sword to turn every way, to keep the way of the tree of life. He drove the man out of the garden, and cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Interesting. Well, we can't go back to the Garden of Eden. It was a childhood place before we had life experiences. It was blissful. We will never forget those experiences. So we have to find our bliss by letting go of the memories now that we have them. It's a different location than in the beginning. This is the list that was as it was before going through that block, and we were at number 8. Here we have started to judge the experiences we have that are away from our nurtured beginnings. We name, judge, or give words to our experiences, and we remember them. These are going to become the experiences that we live and judge life through. We lose our mental state of bliss, Eden, that we live through as unaware children. All right, if we go back and observe the sequence and read through, after that happens, the next thing they do is they cover themselves. So, let's see, the Garden of Day, and they begin to... I was naked, I hid myself. Yeah, that whole big section right there. I think it really just kind of says that we are developing shame or judgments and are beginning to become covered. We are no longer just purely open. All right, so I just called that step. We put on spiritual garments or coverings. We begin to lose our inner peace by having judged memories to hide, but starting out with just a few. All right, what do we have coming up next? Okay, they got covered, they were hiding, gave the tree, eat, what have you done? So now what happens is, okay, cursed above, he curses the serpent, curses life, on the belly you should go. So the serpent represents, it's teaching us life experience there. We don't need to call that a step. I'll put enmity, is that right? Enmity? Or is it enmity? Between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise his head, and it shall bruise her heel, or his head, heel. We're going to begin living with regrets. We're going to regret what we've done and begin to live with the regrets. Let me get that put in here. All right, takes a while to do. I just jumped ahead and finished this up here, actually, to speed it up. We put on our spiritual garments or coverings. We begin to lose our inner peace by having judged memories to hide, but starting out with just a few. We begin to live with regrets and with things to hide that bothers us, as well as our continued life. Cyclical pain will ensue. The memories are subservient in a mental hierarchy to the conscious thinking and emotional management of the conscious mind. You will live unaware of being detached and will learn from and suffer the consequences of physical life experiences. The inner self is going to hold all of our experiences, mother to all. Happiness is left behind as life of the unaware begins. That's where we're kicked out of the garden right there. So that's chapter 3 then, and I'm going to slow down on the numbers right here for right now. I think that that's going to be pretty big, and I see it's chunked in a different way. But I also see that it might not be that critical. Once we get down into later Genesis where it cleans up, I don't know. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Anyway, okay, so, and then the template there, right there is a list of things that we're not even up to the point where Joseph Campbell started his template on the hero of 1,000 faces. His template is one that is very common. It's the hero's journey, and there's many, many, many. There's many in Greek myth. There's many in Abraham material. There's many in Roman myth. There's Egyptian myth. There's Hindu religions. It's all over the world. It's very hard to see. Okay. But he didn't start until, like, right here in this material. It would be when Noah is called. That would be the first time there's a calling and then a refusal of the call. We're going to have a calling and there's not a refusal of the call. But this entire piece right up front is the creation part. Every myth and every religion has a creation, but the creation myth is a short piece. They're all the same, but they only appear once. You might have 1,000 monomyths in Greek myth, but there's only one creation story. You might have hundreds of them here in Abrahamic material of monomyths, but only one creation. So it was real easy to spot the monomyth material as opposed to the creation. And maybe he did and he just kept it to himself. I don't know. But if you were to look at his template, there's no cyclical pain or any of this stuff is not in there. It doesn't describe how it works, the cause and effect. anything like that, how we're products of our mental processes, although he knew that. He and Jung knew that this was a mental process. Okay, well, that's it for this video then. Question, comments, go ahead and put them below. I'll just get into number 4, should go easier. 4, 5, and 6 should be fairly straightforward. One of those is a big analog farm to go through again, so yay. All right, see you in the next video.